Okay, so thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Karen Lanigan and I'm Head of Member Experience here with Chartered Accountants Ireland. I'm also responsible for the Careers Advisory and Recruitment Service and have worked in that area for just over 20 years at this stage. I joined the Institute almost 15 years ago with the specific remit to establish and develop the Careers and Recruitment Service, which I have been doing during that time, and working very closely with members at all career stages, advising in relation to their career development. So I'm here with you today to focus in on the area of career management now that we're working or likely to be working in a hybrid working environment going forward. So I'm going to touch on some of the challenges that can arise as a consequence. So the objectives of the session today are to provide some insights firstly into the changing workplaces as we see it and the feedback that we're getting from our members. Also then to highlight the increased importance of having a career plan and being ready for changes in the work environment. Also to help in terms of outlining strategies for career success, particularly now in a hybrid working environment, and how the changes in that environment will impact on how you need to manage your career. And also then how to manage your networks and to develop networks, again, in an increasingly an online environment. And what another factor that is really important, irrespective of what environment we're in, whether it's in a virtual or a hybrid, is the whole area of self-confidence and self-belief as well. And similarly then looking at career strategies that are sustainable and are underpinned by focus on health and well-being, because obviously that is a key cornerstone for us all and certainly underpins the whole area of career success. And I'd also like then just to highlight some of the career supports that we have available to you as members of Chartered Accountants Ireland. So we're going to start the session this afternoon with two polls. So my colleague Chris is going to bring up the first poll. And it's really just to help me get a sense of the audience today. And I suppose the first question then is, will remote working be a long-term feature of your role? So I'm just trying to get a sense of, you know, that the environment that you're all working in. And as we can see there, like it's very clear that in excess of 90% do expect to have hybrid working or remote working as a permanent feature of your role. So obviously it shows that the webinar today is definitely of interest to you. So that's good to know. So we're saying 93% in all. And the second question then, so we'll just give Chris a moment to do that, is do you have a career plan? So again, it's just kind of give me a sense of, you know, I suppose the stage that, you know, you're at in terms of preparing for your career development. So we're seeing there roughly about 2/3 don't and 1/3 do. So that again, I think, you know, based on that indication there, where, you know, a lot of the content that I'm going to be covering today then will certainly help you in terms of developing that career plan and putting a shape around that, you know, as part of developing your career going forward. So thank you so much for your participation in the poll, and thanks to my colleague Chris for arranging that behind the scenes. So without further ado, then we'll move on. And the first thing I wanted to do was just to highlight some of the trends that are emerging in the market. And this is data that we gathered as part of the Leinster Society Salary Survey just a few short months ago. And we asked members what proportion of their time do they expect to be in the office versus at home. And you can see there that it is fairly, you know, close in terms of 50-50. So whatever way we look at it, you know, there is going to be a strong element of working from home going forward for us all. There may be some variation in terms of how that splits out for many, but overall, like, we're firmly in that space of remote working being a fundamental part of our day jobs, shall we say. So in terms of other research, then what else are we seeing? So according to CIPD, they're saying that there are definitely benefits of working from home, and I'm sure we've all seen that in terms of better work-life balance for some, greater ability to focus with fewer distractions, more time for family and friends, saved commuting time and costs, the requirement to upskill in terms of IT, and then higher levels of motivation. So that was the general finding from CIPD. Now, obviously, there are exceptions to that. I know anecdotally, I've spoken to some where they found certainly during the height of the pandemic that they're working longer hours than they might have done in the office. But overall, the research is showing that there are benefits to working from home. So again, clearly we can see that the hybrid working model is here to stay, and it is something you absolutely need to factor into your career management approach going forward. But there is definitely one element that you need to really keep in mind if you are going to be working remotely, and it's what is commonly referred to now as proximity bias, and it can certainly have a very negative impact on your career. So you might say to me, what is proximity bias? Well, it's the notion that employees who have close proximity to their team, their managers, their leaders, will be perceived as better workers. So in other words, because they're in the office, they're better, better employees. Now, that we all know that that's not the case, but the perception can be very much around that. And ultimately, as a result of being, in close proximity, it can sometimes mean that they experience more success in the workplace than their remote colleagues. It can also sometimes mean that they've access to better perks, they get more time with the decision makers, and those who are not as visible in the office can sometimes be left behind, left out of calls, and it can even, again, according to research, show lead to those working remotely maybe not being paid as significant as much, shall we say. So there can be a number of issues around proximity bias that you really do need to consider when you're managing your career now in the hybrid working environment that we're now in. So what can you do is in terms of ensuring that career success in a hybrid working environment? And that's essentially what I'm going to focus in on today. So the first thing is to take charge of your career. So to actively manage that, and to start by asking yourself some really key questions in terms of what works for you. So some of the questions that you should consider are, do you want to work from home or in the office? Do you want to have a hybrid working model? Or essentially, what is the best balance that works for you? And to have real clarity around that, so you can then plan your career around that preference and look at the roles that are most likely to give you the right balance that works for you. You also need to then consider the environment that you work best in, and what has the most positive impact on your performance and motivation. For some, that is working from home. For others, that is they prefer working in the office, and for others, then it's a balance. So you really need to be sure what works for you, and also consider then the nature of your role, and what model works best for you. And again, building that into your thinking of the future and how that might look for you. And importantly, you need to consider this from a personal and a professional perspective, because there's no point in having one side of that equation balanced and working and the other not, because as we all know, they're interconnected. So you need to think of this from both a personal and a professional perspective. So what else can you do? As we said, proactively managing your career. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, it's having a career plan, and thinking ahead, tapping into your GPS, having that career compass switched on, and really giving time to think ahead in terms of what is it that I want from the next stage of my career. And it can really help you to kind of stay focused on your core objectives during what is I suppose most of us are all in busy roles. So it's important that you have that clarity, that purpose. And if something happens along the way and there's a bit of a setback, well, when you have a career plan, it's much easier to get back on track. And it helps you to break things down, because sometimes it can be quite daunting to kind of think about, well, actually, look, where do I want to be in 5 or 10 years' time? When realistically, sometimes we don't actually know where we want to be. in 12 months or 18 months. So it can help you to kind of break that down into smaller steps, allocate, kind of timelines around that, and basically, kind of step it out, step by step as you move through your career. And also then, what you need to do there in terms of this planning is, as we mentioned already, to factor in the ideal working model for you, so that, if it is that hybrid working model, that you're focusing in on roles and organizations and career moves that will facilitate that for you. So having that very much front and center of your plan. So how do you structure a career plan? So basically you break it down, as I said, into small steps. So you're looking at short term, which for the most part will be up to 12 months. You look at it then in terms of medium term, which is 1 to 3 years, and long term 3 to 5. So that, just helps you, again, as I said, to break it down step by step. And even if you were to focus in on the short and the medium term as a starting point, and then as you develop more clarity around that, then it'll help you to figure things out, for the longer term as well, because it can, as I said, seem quite daunting. So break it down. So then you also need to look at, what are my objectives and my goals, and to really spend some time figuring this one out in terms of what it is you want to get from your career, what's important to you. As we said, that balance in terms of the professional and the personal. And also then to think about what support do I need. So looking at it from the support of the organization you work with, it might be support from family. It could be support from a mentor. It could also be support from ourselves here within the institute as well. So it is something that you do need support with typically. So don't be afraid to look for that support, and don't think that it's something you need to do on your own. And also then to help you to stay motivated, and focused on your goals, you need to be very clear in terms of how you will measure your success. So does that success look like, job satisfaction? Does it mean career progression? Does it mean a particular job title or salary? So for everybody, it's different. So it's being really clear on what success looks like for you. And when you have those different elements in place, you've got a really good start and structure to a career plan that you can use as your map and revisit then as you go throughout your career. So the next thing you need to do within the changed world of work that we're working in is to make sure you have the skills that are required in a hybrid working environment, because as we all know and have seen over the last 18 months or so, the skills that we're using now can tend to be quite different to what we might have been using heretofore. And interestingly, the author Schwartz put it really very well, and he described it as hybrid arrangements require that organizations reinvent their workplaces, but also that employees have to expand their skills. And that's that process that we're going through now is as we move back into the office, is looking at the skills that we need for that hybrid working environment. And he mentioned, for those of you that it will be the same era as myself, or vintage as myself, will remember the Rubik's Cube, and he does describe it as working through a Rubik's Cube. He also described the return to the office and the whole hybrid working model as being not a return to the office, because we are tending to talk about it as that. It is a departure. It's a back to the future kind of story as we all figure out what's next. So there is a lot of change happening at the moment, and likely to be over the next couple of months and indeed years as we work through this. So it is important that you're focused in on the skills that will help you to navigate those changes. So what are the key skills you need to develop? So really it's about, maximizing and embracing the skills that we've all had to demonstrate and to utilize during the pandemic, but it's also, bringing those to the next level and developing other skills as we move forward. So clearly leadership is well up there, and it is really a focus on the softer skills in terms of where the key requirements have been over the last 18 months and likely to be as we go forward. And particularly as you advance your career, we would typically see that you move away from the very technical accounting side more into, the likes of, kind of general management and leadership roles, where it is the softer skills that are often the differentiator. Agility and flexibility, as we all know, been very much at the forefront and will likely to be. That willingness to learn and curiosity, because the skills that we're using and will be required of us are changing at a really fast rate as we see change evolving within our organizations. And a lot of that is driven by technology, obviously. So, we need to be prepared to kind of embrace and leverage technology. Planning and organization, obviously always a good skill set to have. And then specifically then obviously the whole piece around managing hybrid teams, really very important. And there are specific nuances around that relative to managing either just face-to-face teams or indeed virtual teams. So that's definitely one to watch out for. Again, when we surveyed members, and again, this was as part of the Leinster Society salary survey, we did ask them, what impact has the move towards remote working had on the skills and competencies that they need for their work. So you'll see there the aqua blue color is where we're showing that there was an enhancement required of their skills, or where an enhancement took place. So we can see clearly there that the two front runners are finance, software, and IT skills. So that technical piece, there's been a big requirement in that space. And then specifically communication skills. So communication skills being really, really important in the remote working environment, and similarly then will be equally as important as we're working in that hybrid environment as well. So you can see communications there clearly a key requirement, and that is backed up as well by research that we've seen from the CIPD, where they're saying that communication skills are essential, and it is really important that you have effective communication skills to be effective in a hybrid working environment. And if when that is not the case, like you end up in a situation with poor information flow, you've got knowledge gaps, you've got barriers to effective team working, and even the exclusion of members who are not in the office. So it's back to that proximity bias as well, which, as we know, if not carefully managed, can have a negative impact on your team. So you need to make sure that you're not left out, or as a leader or manager, you're not leaving people out as well. So it's really important to manage the communications around this, and to be a lot more, what I would say, kind of intentional around it, and making sure that you're making the most of conversations that you're having. Because one of the things we find when working remotely is that you're not having those kind of ad hoc communications, or those ad hoc meetings in the corridor. So we have to be a lot more intentional around our communication. So it's really important to focus in on that. And it's really our own responsibility, irrespective of what level we're at, whether it's at a leadership level or maybe not so, and at an earlier stage in our career. It's really important that we do focus on being effective in our communication approach and our communication style. So the next thing you can do is play to your strengths. And the key here is to know what those core strengths are. And a really good way of doing that is to make a list of your achievements. We all have them. So whether those achievements are in the workplace, whether they're on the golf course, whether they're on the rugby pitch, or whether it's tennis, it's everything, that you feel is an achievement in your life, including obviously qualifying as a chartered accountant. So simply list those main achievements, pop them down on a sheet of paper or in an Excel spreadsheet, and then ask yourself the question, what skills did I need to be able to achieve what I have achieved? And start working down through those. And very quickly, you will start to see that there's a theme running through, and there's a consistent number of core strengths that you have demonstrated throughout your career. And these are the skills that are both inherent to you, but also skills that you have developed throughout your career. And it's really important that you're well aware of those. You can build on them even further, and to leverage those further as you go throughout your career. But so you can actively look for opportunities where you can play to those strengths and actively use those strengths. Because again, I suppose we're more likely to be successful and more likely to have job satisfaction in roles where we're playing to our core strengths. So for example, if one of your core strengths is the analysis and interpretation of data, there's a great opportunity there for you to really add value within your role. If it's somewhere that's like something you enjoy doing, something you excel at, it totally makes sense that you should leverage that skill, be noticed for that, make sure that the decision makers and the leaders in the organization are aware of those skills, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. But it is really looking at ways to play to those strengths, use those strengths to the advantage of your career, and that can be a real position of strength, and a real opportunity for you to make a difference and to be noticed in terms of career development. So play to your strengths wherever you can. Next then is proactively and intentionally manage your visibility. And this is specifically to deal with that issue of proximity bias that we spoke about earlier. And it is about being more proactive and very much intentional about your visibility within the organization, particularly if you are spending more time working remotely than you are necessarily in the office. So it's all about not becoming invisible. And we've all I suppose seen situations where it's often career success can often be more down to your visibility than your ability. So those who would have a strength or an extra capability in terms of increasing their visibility, making sure they're being seen by the right people, etc. So it's making sure that you're not forgotten about, that you are visible to the decision makers, that you're visible to the key decision makers, as said, within the organization, and that you're being very intentional around that. And even something simple like putting on your camera during a meeting can mean that you have a greater impact in the meeting, and always making sure that you do have some points to get across, that you are intentionally making an impact during a particular meeting. But it really is all about being very intentional around this, and making sure that you do get that visibility that you need to help you move your career forward. Similarly, when you are in the office, it's really important that you're making the most of that time in the office. And again, it's all about being intentional. It's about being strategic and deliberate about your engagements when you're in the office, and planning exactly what it is you want to get from your time in the office. So you might develop a plan and set objectives and say to yourself, well, look, when I'm in the office, this is what I want to achieve. These are the people who I want to meet, and obviously then checking to make sure that those people are there the same day as you are, setting up meetings, setting up a cup of coffee, and really using that time to your best advantage, and really connecting in with the people that you really want to connect with. And this will help you in terms of connecting and building out your network, because one of the I suppose the factors that has impacted us all during COVID and working remotely is that we haven't had the opportunity to build out our network, or even to connect with people as much as we might like to have. So we all have some ground definitely to make up there. So it is about being proactive in that space. It is about being intentional and making sure that you're getting that face-to-face people with the face-to-face time with the people that you need to influence. So it's having that hit list, it's being very intentional, and making the most of the time in the office. Similarly, as well, generally the feedback is, and research again is showing, that the ideal time for collaboration and innovation is definitely in that office space, and when you're meeting with people face to face. And we have seen a lot of organizations are reformatting their offices now, so that when people are back in the office, that they have more open collaboration spaces. So the I suppose the layout of offices is in some instances is changing to facilitate that. So it really is about being very intentional, very focused, and very strategic about reconnecting with colleagues, building new connections, and really making sure that you are, again, it's when you're in the office that you are visible and making the most of that time in the office. Similarly, what we're all missing out on, or have been missing out on over the last 18 months, is those what they call the water cooler moments, or when you might meet somebody kind of ad hoc or impromptu in the corridor, where you might get to hear of something which you might otherwise not have, or you get to ask somebody a question, or you start to meet somebody over coffee at the coffee station on a regular basis, and build a bit of a rapport. We are all missing that. So when you're back in the office, it's important to kind of I suppose appreciate the opportunities that these quick moments or opportune moments present, and really again to focus in on those. And it is often those moments that I suppose make being in the office kind of worthwhile, so that you have that opportunity to reconnect with your colleagues once again. So again, in this space, in terms of limiting the negative impact of proximity bias, I think you really need to focus on showcasing your outputs and showcasing your achievements. So it's making sure that the decision makers are well aware of the great work that you're doing. Now, look, I appreciate a lot of people don't like blowing their own trumpet, and that's not necessarily, what I'm asking here, but or suggesting, but it is like, if you have an opportunity to kind of give some insight in terms of the great work that you've been doing, use that opportunity and look for opportunities to kind of spotlight your achievements. And when you're in the office, it's always a good idea to see if you can get some time with your manager, your director, the CEO, whoever it is that you feel it is important to connect in with. And also, if you have a performance review coming up, and for many that'll be kind of in the next couple of months and into early next year, it's a good opportunity to have those conversations as well, and making sure that, particularly because we've all been working remotely of late, it's making sure that your direct line manager or director is fully aware of the great work that you've been doing over the last 12 months. So it's a good opportunity to start thinking about that now, planning that, and it really is all about kind of the outputs rather than the time spent. And that's definitely where organizations are focusing now, is your contribution, your achievements, the difference, the value add you made within the organization. So that's the way you should be thinking too when comes to those performance review conversations. And it can also be a good idea to share your career plan with them as well, so that they see you're focused, you're ambitious, and it's a good opportunity to see what support might be available from the organization to help you achieve your overall career objectives. So next, we've touched on this somewhat already. It's about developing and leveraging your network, and that's an area, as I said, that has been, I suppose, forgotten about to some extent, because we've been working remotely, or everybody's been so busy. So it really is a good time now to actively build in time into your career plan to develop your networks. Again, to be proactive, deliberate, and strategic around this, and again to set yourself goals. I do appreciate that this can be something that some members find daunting, but I think again, if you start small and build it up, and set yourself some goals and objectives, even to connect or reconnect with one or two people a week, and start building that up, it can really make such a difference. I would be a big believer in quality over quantity. So like having a network, a good strong network of 50 people, to my mind, or even 5 or 15 people, is much better than just a list of kind of random people that you haven't actually got a connection with. I think it is about quality over quantity. You also want to be authentic in terms of those relationships that you're building, and to my mind, it's always about reciprocity. So that you're willing to do something for somebody in your network, they're willing to do something for you. So it is about that kind of mutual support and help, and really feeling that you can support and add value, and that the other person is willing to do so as well. So it is really about being authentic and being focused on quality, and being deliberate around it. And I think there is going to be a lot more focus on networking as we continue to emerge over the next couple of months. And I know from our research and surveys that we've done, there is a genuine appetite amongst members to to get back out networking again, because that's something they've realized that they've missed, and haven't had the opportunity to do in recent times. We're all, I'm sure, very familiar with LinkedIn, so I'm not going to kind of spend too much time on this, but it really is the ideal portal for reaching out to people, because sometimes I know people, you can struggle with knowing how to reach out. How do I break the ice? But LinkedIn provides you with that perfect opportunity to send an invite request and a little note. And then it's also a good central repository or portal where you can manage those networks. And it's also a good opportunity for you to develop your own profile there as well, and to get a little bit more kind of visibility as well. It's a good opportunity, to kind of like content, to share content, and generally, get your, I suppose, profile out there, and to connect and to develop your network. So certainly one to consider. And anybody who would like some support with developing out their LinkedIn profile, do let us know. I'm happy to review your profile and give you feedback around that. The other piece of advice we would have is to get involved. So this I suppose refers to getting involved in projects within the organization, because again, it can give you opportunity to get visibility across the organization. It's an opportunity to add value. It is also an opportunity to connect with new people outside of your own network. So it can be beneficial on a number of fronts. Also, there are good opportunities to get involved with ourselves here in the Institute, whether that's through your local district society, the young professionals, other committees as well. So again, anybody interested in that, do let me know. Similarly, in work, I'm sure you have sports clubs or social clubs. Again, great way to get involved and develop your network. And similarly, like local chambers and professional networks are again a great way to expand your network, meet others, get involved, and raise your profile. So all something to consider, and again, elements to factor into your career plan. So next, then, building your self-confidence. And this is something, I suppose, again, that can be fundamentally really, really important. And sometimes, like, we all have moments where, things aren't going quite so well, or something has happened and you've been knocked back a little bit, and your confidence is low. And we've seen that particularly again in recent times, where things have been tough for people, and their confidence levels may not be where they once would have been. And we all need a bit of reminding of the successes in our lives. So again, similar to what I was saying to you earlier, to look at what those successes and those achievements have been. And that can be a really interesting exercise to boost your confidence. I went through an example of that with a member recently who has been out of work for a number of years due to illness. And as you can imagine, their confidence wasn't where it once was, and they were finding it difficult, to kind of, I suppose, reconnect with their professional selves, to really zone in on, the strengths, the qualities, etc., that they had to bring back into the workplace. So we went through this exercise of, highlighting their achievements and their successes, and went through those in quite a lot of detail. And the outcome from that was that this particular member is now more confident and has a lot more clarity in relation to what skills and qualities and experience they have to now bring back into the workplace. So it has made that transition back to the workplace a lot easier. So it definitely, it takes time, there's no doubt about that, but it's definitely time worth spending. The other point to mention is to manage your inner critic. So we all have this little voice, or this little gremlin, that speaks to us like on a daily basis. And generally it's not a positive message that it's sending. And like if others spoke to us the way we would speak to ourselves, sometimes, like, we certainly wouldn't tolerate it. So it is really to be very careful around the messages that you're sending yourself, because if they are constantly negative messages, and you have that constant negative messaging going through your mind, that will absolutely dent your confidence. And I'm seeing a little bit of that as I'm speaking to members at the moment, because they may have had a difficult experience over recent times, or there's understandable anxieties about going back to the workplace, so it is something to really to watch. And I like the quote here by this gentleman, Alan Cohen, where he says, if you gave your inner genius as much credence as your inner critic, you will be light years ahead of where you now stand. And I think that's really true, because often it is our self-confidence that is holding us back, so it is about having more belief in ourselves and in what we can achieve. And that really is all down to a focus on a positive mindset as well. And again, I like this quote, which is, your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude. So it is all about, feeding our mind with more positive thoughts, being a lot more positive in terms of our approach and our outlook, and to look at challenges not as being threatening, but as being, an opportunity and a chance to grow. And Carol Dweck, she's a psychologist. She's done a lot of work in this particular space, and she talks about the growth mindset over the fixed mindset. So if anybody's interested in that particular space, I'd certainly recommend doing a little bit more research into the work that Carol has done. And it is all about that, positive mindset and that growth mindset, and that can really help in terms of driving our careers forward. So again, worth consideration. The other suggestion I would have is to find a mentor, because again, like I mentioned earlier, we don't have to be on our own in this career journey. It can be really beneficial to get the help of a mentor, and typically somebody who may be a couple of steps ahead in terms of their career, somebody who can give you that that support, somebody who can drive you on, somebody who believes in you, somebody who'll give you that kind of the feedback, and constructive feedback that, where there might be blind spots that you don't realize. And somebody, pointing that out to you could be the turning point for you. And, somebody that puts that little bit of pressure on you and that genuinely cares, about your career success. So that could be either, somebody that you have identified through your own network, somebody, you work with, or somebody outside of your work environment. For some, it's a good friend or close family member. For others, then they come to us in Chartered Accountants Ireland. We have a career mentor program, and we can connect you with other members who, again, have had, quite, significant success in their career, and who have offered up their time to support other members. So if you're interested in that, do come back to me, because it can be really beneficial just to get that support and insight from other members. And it is really that kind of peer-to-peer support and learning from the experiences of others, and getting that, I suppose, independent, impartial advice from somebody can really be very invaluable. So something to give serious consideration to. Similarly, then, a focus on well-being, and like well-being has been a big, I suppose, hot topic over the during the pandemic. And I know from the feedback we've received from our members, that it is an area of significant importance to them, and there's a lot more kind of focus on it, really. And I think in terms of career progression, if you want to have a sustainable career, you do really need to focus on that self-care element. Mental health and well-being is really very crucial to sustaining a successful career, and building that into your overall kind of planning and strategy, and your learning and development. And it is all about building up that resilience and focusing on your mental health and well-being, and prioritizing that, because I think, traditionally that isn't something we've necessarily been good at. And I think it like self-care does need to become a significant priority in terms of our overall kind of career plan and career approach. I think that the approach up until recently is to be to kind of like to look at it if you need to, whereas actually you need to be more, again, that word deliberate and more proactive in terms of managing that. And that's on a number of different levels. So whether that's from a physical perspective and making sure you're getting the right level of sleep, exercise, your diet is correct, but also as well when it comes to the emotional side of things, managing stress, building that self-awareness. Then from a social perspective, it's making sure, you've set those boundaries between work and home. You're getting the level of kind of social interaction and connection that you want with others. And also then the spiritual side. And for different people, that's different things, whether it's yoga or, just simply going for a walk, whatever that might be. But it's making sure that you have that balance in terms of self-care, which is really, really important. So finally then, before I open up to you for some an overview of the supports available to you as a member. And basically, I suppose you can access all of these supports free of charge as a member. So there we have a team of recruitment and coaching specialists who can provide careers advice and coaching. We can also give you CV and interview preparation advice. We have a recruitment service as well, where organizations come to us specifically looking to recruit chartered accountants. We also then have a range of online tools, including a competency map online. So you can go in and check out and see how your skills rate relative to where you should be at this particular point, and depending on your career stage and the areas you need to zone in on, and how you then develop those skills. So that can be particularly useful. It's called our career pathway tool. And as I mentioned, we also then have a career mentor program. So anybody interested in that, please do reach out to me. So our contact details, I can be contacted on careers@charteredaccountants.com. Sense of how to go about managing your career in a hybrid working environment. Some of the areas, and the nuances that we're going to be dealing with now in the new world of work, the trends that are impacting on career planning and getting that success and keeping your career on track, and also then a sense of the supports that we have available here through Chartered Accountants Ireland. So if anybody has any questions, I would just ask you to pop those into the chat. So any questions or comments that you might have, happy to take those at this point. And also then, as mentioned, if you want to reach out to me afterwards, happy to take any questions through the careers@charteredaccountants.ie. If you prefer to send any questions through to me by email, simply email careers@charteredaccountants.ie, and happy to take any of those questions offline and give further information in relation to the career mentor program, or indeed the other services that we have, or if indeed you'd like to meet with the member of the team, we're happy to facilitate that as well. So thank you very much for joining me here today, and hopefully you found the session useful, and please do reach out to us, as I said, if we can help at all. I just got one comment there to say many thanks, Karen, very informative. So hopefully you all found it as really informative, and as I said, happy to help at any point again, and thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. Take care.